Hello, I'm Carwyn Jones and welcome to this week's Business News Wales Weekly Business Review, looking at all the issues that have affected the business community over the last 7 days. As ever, I'm joined today by three guests, one guest who's on for the first time and two who have been on before. It's a great pleasure to welcome Alison Orrells, the Chief Exec of the Safety Letterbox company, for the first time onto the podcast. Alison, you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Also good to have back Richard Selby, the Chief Executive of ProSteel. Richard, good to have you back.
Thank you, Carwyn. Hello.
And Oliver Conger, the Chief Executive of British Rotothrem. Been on before, Oliver, I know that, but good to have you back on board.
Thanks for inviting me back.
Now, what I want to explore with the three of you to begin with is Manufacturing Wales, a body that you've been involved in setting up. Oliver, I'm going to come to you first in a moment just to give us an idea of the reason behind setting up manufacturingwales.com, the thinking behind it, what you wanted to do, and how you can see it contributing to a healthier manufacturing industry here in Wales. It's all about Manufacturing Wales. Tell us more about its genesis and its growth.
Yeah, thanks, Carwyn. It actually came about. It was actually just after sort of from a podcast. I think one of the first lockdown podcasts, Carwyn, that we did together with Mark, and one of the guests was Frank Holmes. And afterwards, we just started talking about what more can we do, within manufacturing in Wales. I think this was at a time where we were having a lot of issues with PPE. We were talking about manufacturing. It was high on the news agenda. And we just sort of said, well, look, in Wales, there is a huge breadth of capability. There is, exceptional quality. And actually, if we do a bit of joined up thinking within the supply chain, we can do a lot more. And I think with Mark from Business News Wales and Frank, we carried on that discussion over several weeks, and what then became the creation of Manufacturing Wales. And it slowly started to get legs. We slowly sort of, well, what if we bring this into it? What if we bring that into it? And we then looked to other partners that might be interested, such as Richard, such as Alison, and some other, companies around Wales, leading companies. And here we are. I think, last month we launched Manufacturing Wales, the organisation, and I think it's got a huge amount of potential, huge opportunities. Quality is at the core. So what we said, this is not just for anyone and everyone. This needs to be, some criteria being part of this, this organisation. Certainly the quality side. And we're, I've got to say, we're really excited what it's going to turn into over the coming months and years.
So in terms of how you'd like it to develop, what do you see it adding in terms of being able to help the manufacturing sector in Wales?
I think it's going to be, a platform for businesses to connect, to discuss problems, to create solutions, to share in things such as operational excellence, digitalization. So a lot of ability within, this is a within Wales a group, and then leverage off also the supply chain. So sort of saying, well, okay, many of these, there is lots of organizations that do this, but actually, how can we leverage off the supply chain and do more together? Certainly within, keep the pound within Wales, and also do more to then export around the world. There's some, incredible companies, and also again working together, become a voice for industry. So this is not just a case of, right, well, this is just for private organizations. How can private industry, how can public organizations work together to do a lot more? And again, with that badge, I think when we have that badge of Manufacturing Wales, it is associated with exceptional quality.
Alison, if I can come to you, this is the first time you've been in the podcast. I'm going to ask you in a moment just to tell us a little bit more about your business, so we have an idea of what the Safety Letterbox company is. And then if you could give us some idea of how you see Manufacturing Wales helping you as a business and how you'd like to see it develop in the future.
Okay, thank you. So the Safety Letterbox company has been manufacturing mailboxes in Neath for 35 years now. It was started by my family and with only one product. And now, 35 years later, we have over 180 models of mailboxes that we supply to the construction industry predominantly throughout the UK and worldwide. We also are part of the Rents Group now, which is head office in Germany. And, it's a very niche product. We employ 65 people in Neath, but 800 throughout Europe. And we have been investing in the innovation of parcel delivery for the last 10 years, which is hugely exciting because it's taken us on a different journey in terms of exposure to other things within manufacturing and IT and software development. And now we have a fantastic solution for intelligent parcel delivery, which is going to really change the model for decarbonisation in terms of efficiency, for the last mile, etc. So we've got many exciting things going on at the moment.
Okay, and in terms of manufacturing Wales, how would you want to see manufacturing Wales develop in terms of what it can do, not just for you as a business, but more generally for the sector across Wales?
Yeah, well, I think, it's quite isolating, particularly for SMEs in manufacturing, and it's really important that we shout about what we're good at. And collaboratively, we can really do that. We've got so many fantastic businesses and industries out there that we can pull together and be a stronger voice. And I think that that's, one of the major benefits for me to be part of this, as Oliver just mentioned, in terms of the supply chain opportunities, the links and collaboration with the universities, academia. We're very interested as a group to work with the universities to look at KTPs, the use of their resources for R&D and product development, and really to look at introducing manufacturing again into schools to ensure that the future innovators and young people will keep this industry alive and thriving in the future.
Thanks, Alison. If I come to you, Richard, what does manufacturing Wales mean to you in terms of how it can develop in the future? And perhaps if we take it a step further and think of how we can influence government as well, because clearly manufacturing needs all the help it can at the moment, but it certainly needs help from government to create the right business atmosphere in the future, and governments at all levels, of course. How do you see it perhaps interacting with levels of government as well as between businesses over the next few years?
Okay, so as a company, we're fairly new to manufacturing. We've only been manufacturing about 5 years, and we manufacture generally a lot of bespoke products for the construction industry, and they're one-offs. We've been looking for some time about product manufacture and having that sustainability for our workshops, and one of the things that we found after we'd set up the company was that in Torfaen, where we're based, there's 38% of the companies are manufacturers, but we didn't really know who they were and what they did. But as we sort of embedded in the community, we found that there were some synergies and there was opportunities to work together and solve each other's problems. So that presented, a good opportunity for us as a business to work alongside some similar industries, but with new opportunities in new markets. So we did this as a bit of a project about a year or so ago. And then when Frank Holmes approached me about manufacturing Wales, it seemed to make so much sense that we could broaden this out across Wales, really. And if we could create a network of high quality manufacturers across a range of industries, then potentially, we could really make a lot of economic progress in Wales. And I think when you talk about how you influence government, what we want to be a private business run organisation. But what I think the benefit of that is, we're going to be giving direct messages into government about, where manufacturing is, what the shape of it is, what the skills demand is, what the requirement for our future skills need will be. And I think it will be endemic then of government to listen to what we have to say going forward, because there is a huge opportunity for us to create a lot of prosperity out of this. Now, in terms of what we'd want from government, the one thing I've always said is, facilitation. There's a lot of data out there about what companies are out there. The private sector, we can get in the room as we're doing with manufacturing Wales and make things happen. But if we could work with the public sector to sort of use the information they have to help us build this organisation, it would be very useful.
Thanks, Richard. I want to move on now to challenges and opportunities for manufacturing. I'm going to start with the challenges, because let's do the difficult and negative bits first before we move on to opportunities. We know COVID is a challenge for many businesses, although I know there are opportunities out there for some businesses in terms of PPE, and it's been remarkable how that's been done in a very short space of time. We know that uncertainty over Brexit is inevitably going to be a challenge until we have a better idea of what that might look like. Oliver, if I can come to you, I mean, those are the two most obvious areas, but where else do you see there being challenges over the next few months? And one issue that we can't really know about is how quickly the economy will bounce back once we get to a position, hopefully from Easter onwards, where we can start to return to something that closer to normality as a result of the vaccine. So what are the challenges from your perspective?
No, I think with that is the challenge, the confidence. I think talking with other SMEs, private organizations, is people are just don't know when this is going to sort of, let's say, things go back to normal and people feel confident in it to invest in. So I think certainly at the moment there is a lot of holding on to cash. Cash is certainly king. So there's some big headwinds coming against not just us here in Wales, but I think the world economy. And it's do you want to go and spend that money now, or just sort of like hold on to it and wait to see how things look come April, come May, come June next year? And I think that's the challenge. Whereas with business confidence, people will be willing to say, right, let's go ahead with that project. We can see ourselves getting a return on that over the next few years. We're starting to see people hesitate. And with that has a knock-on effect. So I think that's then translating, well, actually, should we as an organization be a bit more cautious? And then certainly then the supply chain behind us get impacted. So I think certainly, this is where government can bring confidence in by, with some of the contracts. There's this, there's a lot of talk about foundation economy. How can we keep the, support manufacturing and get that confidence back? And then people are willing to then innovate, take steps, and build the economy that way. So to me, it's the confidence really is being knocked. And I think there's, again, when you pick up the news, there's just, you're starting to see it now with coming from Westminster, as people are talking about, the headwinds coming in 2021. But with that, I'm sure you'll come on to, but there is a lot of opportunities as well.
We'll leave the opportunities for a second, if I could, because I'm keen just to tease out some of the challenges and perhaps see if there are challenges there that we haven't mentioned before. Alison, if I come to you, one of the points that Oliver made there was, there's a choice to be made in terms of investment, isn't there? At some point, there'll be an economic upturn, and it may well be quite significant. We don't know when that'll be, of course. But as a business, Alison, from your perspective, what are you seeing? Are people saying, let's invest now because there's going to be a boom at some point, post-vaccine? Or, as Oliver said, are you seeing people saying, well, no, let's wait a bit more and let's hold on to cash before we take any decisions as to future investment? What's your gut instinct on that?
Well, in the large, if I look at our own business and who we supply in the construction industry, for example, very much it's pushing on with the plans, executing the plans, exactly as you described, to put us in the right place to be able to maximise on any opportunity when they come round. And we're trying to look at it with an optimistic hat on, and we won't always be in this situation, and we've gone in it strong, so it's a question of sticking with our plans. But you do have in the back of your mind the fact that if we're supplying into construction, but so many people lose their jobs, for example, that means that whilst construction is saying they're going to continue to build, are they going to have buyers eventually because of the unemployment figures? And therefore, that's totally, no matter how positive we are, it's taken out of our hands. But for sure, you know, I do see, and a lot of the businesses that are involved in manufacturing Wales are innovators and are driving and striving for growth regardless, and are putting the plans in place to maximise on all those opportunities.
Yeah, Richard, thanks, Alison. Richard, from your perspective, are you seeing any blockages at the moment in terms of the supply chain where people are holding back and saying, you know, let's wait and see what happens before they actually invest?
I haven't actually seen many blockages after sort of the initial response to COVID, where there were some supply issues, and probably quite a few companies, you know, closed down when they didn't need to, with hindsight, which caused some issues in terms of supply, and it made us look further beyond our normal supply chain to sort of risk assess, you know, our continuity of production. But by and large, our main concern now is really what's going to happen on the 31st of December. We've got steelwork coming into our factory from the continent in December, with the second half being delivered in January. And are we going to get it? And I think, you know, that's where our priorities have moved, really. I think the COVID response was difficult at the time and a bit of a roller coaster, but in a manufacturing environment, we were relatively able to manage that situation. You know, it was another health and safety risk and hazard that we just had to implement. This Brexit unknown, I suppose, is the unsteadier, which obviously we'll know a bit more about in the next month, but it's going to potentially have a huge impact.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be neutral here about Brexit, though my views are well known. Whatever happens, there's bound to be uncertainty. We know that. There's uncertainty for the EU and the UK, but of course the UK will lose its current access on the terms it has to its biggest market, which the EU won't, because the UK is not its biggest market. So that we know will be a real unknown. We wait and see whether fish will mean that we don't have a deal, but that's something that we can only wait on, isn't it, I'm afraid. And of course, we know the other issue that we're seeing is retailers going through a collapse in many sectors. We've seen with Arcadia this week, unable to compete against online retailers, and we're seeing thousands of jobs being lost in retail. So the question, Oliver, is this, isn't it? Where are the opportunities? All those jobs being lost in retail, can they be made up in the manufacturing sector, for example? They won't all be, but is there an opportunity there? Are there opportunities for manufacturing to expand and perhaps to help those people who are being made redundant in retail? We know the challenges. We've talked about them many, many times on this podcast, but let's see if we can be a bit more upbeat from all of you. I'll come to Oliver first. The opportunities.
Yeah, I think
it will always be the case that we're in an economic trough, and we know from history that's not going to happen. So, from your perspective, tell us, where are the opportunities for you and for Welsh manufacturing?
Now, I think, I mean, I'm the eternal optimist, as my wife always tells me, but I think, you know, the world has changed. You know, COVID, you know, like it or hate it, it's I don't think anyone likes it, but it's changed everything. You know, the way we live. You know, habits, they say, change after 60 days or so. So habits have changed, and that is now, I think, turning into real opportunities where the money's flowing differently. I think certain like the retail sector, I'd never bought one item ever on the internet before, and now I bought shoes, jeans, shirts, and they all come in. They're coming in the right sizes. So do I necessarily need to go back and buy it in a shop again? Well, no, actually the process is so simple. In the manufacturing side of things, certainly what we've found, we've leveraged off things such as our ability to switch and change and be agile And I've found that companies are now looking for, our customers are looking for partners who can just react very quickly, come up with a product that they need, and deliver it very fast, as opposed to, well, I'm going to go and find it the cheapest I can from Southeast Asia or something. Actually, they're not finding it as cheap anymore. I was literally just talking a couple of weeks ago where a customer was having to buy in 6 months worth of stock. And then when they considered all the cost of everything, and it was very difficult to innovate, they sort of saying, well, actually, it's far better to buy it from Wales. So I think there is so many opportunities in lots of areas. I think, I've found, there's two different type of organizations during this COVID. There's ones that have just put their head in the ground and just sort of saying, well, I'm going to wait for it all to get better and it'll be all fine. And those who just sort of said, look, screw it, we're going out on the charge. And I think there's a lot in Wales, some incredibly, inspirational companies. I love it. I love sort of watching some of these podcasts and social media posts where you sort of say, flipping it, all right, this is what you need. And I think you sort of need that injection, don't you? Sort of from some of these companies, sort of, right, come on, guys, let's fire ourselves up. I think it's in all areas. I mean, certainly, we all see about retail going under it, but I think in manufacturing, so many parts of manufacturing are just changing the way they buy or what they buy or how they buy. So I think it's really trying to find those niches and being absolutely brilliant. I think that's what, I guess from Alison's side, being fantastic at a particular niche and continue to innovate in that. One of our product lines that we've seen, we wouldn't have predicted it to do so well in COVID, but it's had the opposite. It's actually grown 2-3 times. So it's being open. I think you've got to have the big eyes and big ears to be able to react very quickly to these opportunities as they come.
Alison, from your perspective, your business, family business, has been running for 35 years, so a venerable business, having gone through, I'm sure, many difficulties in the past and come through them. You mentioned that you're still seeing construction, the construction sector is still ploughing ahead. Where do you see the opportunities in the future for yourself and perhaps more generally for the Welsh economy?
Well, for us personally, I mean, the retail sector, I'm particularly passionate about. That's where I started my career, actually, and with Arcadia. So it really hit home that. But for us, because we invested so heavily in the innovation and the creation of intelligent parcel boxes, the shift in e-commerce is exactly what our new product was designed to do. They're anticipating that by 2025, the parcel volume is going to double. And so where is it all going to go? In multiple occupancy developments, they've already got a problem, let alone what it's going to be like in 5 years' time. So for us, the innovation and the investment in that is going to bring lots of opportunities for further development, new markets, international markets, job creation, expansion. We're looking to build a new factory, et cetera, et cetera. So personally, we've got lots of exciting things ahead of us. And I think that, in our emerging green and tech sectors in Wales, there's so much exciting stuff going on. I mean, in terms of just endless exciting things. And that's what we need, is that voice to really shout about what's going on now, to attract those that are losing their jobs, unfortunately, in those traditional sectors, into something that maybe they have never, ever considered.
Thanks, Alison. Well, Richard, two optimists there, and a self-described eternal optimist, and somebody who sees great opportunities ahead. What about yourself? Where do you, from your perspective then as a business and more generally, where do you think we can go to capitalize on any future opportunities?
Okay, so we've talked a lot about procurement and supply chains in the past. I think we could really make a huge difference if we got on and sorted that out once and for all. And I think private sector and public sector can work together to get through all that if there's a willingness. I think in terms of where we go in the future, and it's about how we're agile and adapting our products for the economies of the post-COVID era. So we hear a lot about the green recovery. It is incredible. Over the last few weeks, I've been talking to a number of renewables firms who are looking to set up manufacturing facilities in Wales, which is just so exciting. And they'll need Welsh supply chains to support them. So, you know, we need to embrace that. I think we need to set our vision, you know, be bold, be brave, and go for it. And I think there is the capability and the quality here to support some new industries that complement the skill sets that we already have.
Well, thank you all for your participation in the podcast today. Many thanks to my three guests, Alison Orrells, Richard Selby, and Oliver Conger. Join me again next week for the Business News Wales Weekly Business Review with me, Carwyn Jones, where we'll discuss all the issues that have arisen in the past week. See you next week, and in the meantime, keep safe.